Once upon a time, there was a person, probably a man, probably a cis man. You'll see where I'm going with this. Who loved his life, who loved where he lived, who loved God. And once upon a time, there was a big storm coming. One of these very serious hurricanes, I think. It was bound to bring rain and wind and more rain and more rain. So much so that the mayor of the city in which he lived told everyone to evacuate from their homes so that they would be safe. But the man loved his life, loved where he lived, and loved God. He was a bit stubborn. So even when a person came in a canoe, when the waters were 2 feet deep, the man said, "No, thank you. It's okay. God will save me." "It's not safe for you here." No, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. The water became higher and higher. Eventually, he was on the roof of his house, and people came with a motorboat and did a little zigzag around and carefully stopped near him and said, "Come on, get on, get on. This could be your last chance." He said, No. God will save me." Finally, as the water started to get close to his head, a helicopter with one of those little ladders that you let down came by, and they said, "Come on, we're going to help you. We'll get up on the ladder, get up on the ladder. It'll be okay." No. It's okay. God will save me. As you might imagine, that was about it for this man in this life. And as he stood before the heavenly throne, he was a bit confused. "I don't understand, God. All of my life, I have had faith. I have believed in you. I've prayed and I've prayed and I've believed and I've believed. But here I am, my life on earth over." And God, as you may realize by now, responded, "First the mayor told you to leave, and then I sent a person with a canoe, and then a motorboat, and then a helicopter. What more should I have done for you?" The second half of Sefer Shemot, of Exodus, is overwhelmingly dedicated to the instructions for building the Mishkan, our portable shrine in the desert, and then the actual construction of the Mishkan itself, this incredible sanctuary that we had for years and years before King Solomon built the first temple in the land of Israel roughly 3,000 years ago. But in between these 2 parshiot here and 2 parshiot here, we have this week's parsha, Ki Tisa. This week's Torah portion, besides containing Vishamru, focuses on the construction of the golden calf and its consequences. So if I had to do a very un-Jewish thing, which is to summarize the last 5 parshiot in Exodus in 3 bullet points, I would say, bullet point 1, Hashem tells Moses, "Make a sanctuary, and I will dwell among the Israelites." Bullet point 2, Moshe has been gone a long time. We better make a god to replace that other god. And bullet point 3, and here's the Mishkan, how it was actually made. So one question that has puzzled sages for generations is why this week's parsha, why the story of the golden calf is wedged within the middle of the instructions themselves and the carrying out of those instructions. Rabbi Bachya ben Asher, a medieval Spanish commentary, taught that God does not give us a malady without giving us the cure first. Don't know how this sits with everyone. Perhaps you've heard some version of something like this when someone who's having a really hard time in life says to themselves, or maybe is told by someone else in an attempt at consolation, "God doesn't give anyone anything they can't handle." Okay, true confession, I hate this. I'm really not a fan of the "God doesn't give us anything we don't handle," not only because it paints a limiting picture of a God that feels particularly personal and not as expansive as I want to imagine that God is, but also because if God really doesn't give me anything I can't handle, and I start to fall short, if I start to crumble or cry or need to ask for help, or feel inadequate. And like it feels like I'm the one who's utterly failed. But maybe Rabbi Bachya is offering us a more nuanced take in saying that God gives us the solution before the problem. Even before the Torah says that our ancestors sinned en masse, there are blueprints waiting for the Mishkan. A shrine so special that when we fall short, we can bring sacrifices there to get right with God. A shrine so special that once a year on Yom Kippur, when the high priest enters the Holy of Holies, as we'll learn, to purify the shrine, not only are the sins of the priest and the priesthood forgiven, but the sins of our entire people, maybe even the sins of the entire world. We are forgiven for our collective shortcomings. This is a panacea beyond any cure-all we have known before. So what if we really imagine that God does not give us a problem without the solution? Perhaps we could better link our prayers to actions and approach the greatest challenges that befall us from a stance of growth opportunities. After all, if all the answers were right immediately in front of us, then there would be no such thing as a challenge. And it's often those challenges that give us opportunities to grow. You know, as Rabbi Jack Reamer writes, and we have this printed in some version in our prayer book, we cannot merely pray to God to end war, for the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace between ourselves and our neighbors. The poem goes on. Perhaps it is no coincidence that the hills and valleys that make landscapes so beautiful are reminders that the nature of a fulfilling life includes negotiating intellectual, emotional, and spiritual landscapes as well. Once upon a time, there lived a man who loved his life, loved where he lived, and also loved God. And when they came with a canoe and came with a motorboat and came with a helicopter, he failed to see the solutions that were actually right in front of him. When we feel like we have more on our plate than we can handle, when the children in our lives are overwhelmed by school, when we feel overwhelmed by too many responsibilities, feel paralyzed by the nightly news or the latest threat or action against our freedom, or when we're just feeling, kind of regular anxious, sad, out of sorts, we may do well not to lose sight of the possibility that there is a solution, maybe one that we do not know yet, or maybe something that we haven't thought about yet that is a solution. Here's a pro tip. Talking with someone about what we're experiencing can be a really good first step, not to have to handle things on our own. Either the challenge itself or the search for a solution. Sometimes if we're the ones struggling, we focus so much on the struggle that we don't even see that there might be people in canoes all around us. So that means for those who are struggling less at any given time, that we have an opportunity to reach out to one another and say, how are you? Want to jump in my canoe with me? I can handle the paddling for a little while. Come on. And really mean that we'll handle the paddling for a while. Let's make extra efforts to connect with one another if we have a sense that someone is struggling more than we are. No sweeping things under the carpet, pretending it's not there. None of this, if we don't talk about it, it will go away. And let's try to minimize the times when we say, call me if you need me, and instead focus on, I am going to reach out and check in on you, and then actually do it. No one is 100% their best self the whole time, but if, when we ourselves are doing reasonably well, we pay special attention to how others are doing, then we may find that collectively there are many more solutions than problems, and we can all benefit from this care of one another. So perhaps one of the greatest lessons of the second half of Sefer Shemot is the collective nature of the building of the Mishkan. Everyone was invited to have a role in creating this concrete symbol of God dwelling among us. Each person was valuable enough to be a part of constructing the Holy of Holies, and each person was held responsible when there was a vacuum in leadership during Moses' 40 days away. Today, too, each of us is responsible for one another as we follow the dictum in Pirkei Avot that in a place where there is no mensch, sei a mensch, be a mensch. Be a mensch. Make sure that everyone feels a sense of value, of connection, and knows on the difficult days that we are each other's canoes, motorboats, and helicopters, guiding one another on pathways that feel safe and are better. Shabbat Shalom. We'll move toward the conclusion of our service.